London, 1817. Lady Beatrice Kent stared at her reflection in the gilded looking-glass, a woman of 22 years examining herself with cool detachment. The emerald silk gown had been chosen with mathematical precision, the color complemented her auburn hair while the modest cut balanced propriety with just enough fashionable allure to catch a wealthy man's eye. Marriage, after all, was merely a transaction in which women traded youth and breeding for security and position. "Perfect," she murmured, adjusting a curl that had escaped its pins. "Perfectly calculated." Her lady's maid stepped back. "You look beautiful, my lady." "Beauty is irrelevant, Gibson. The Duke of Mounthaven requires a hostess who understands discretion and decorum. My appearance need only be unobjectionable." Beatrice's tone was matter-of-fact. She had made peace with this arrangement months ago when her father's solicitors had discovered the dire state of the Kent estate finances. The venerable Kent name might command respect, but respect didn't pay creditors. Only marriage to the wealthiest peer available, the recently widowed Duke of Mounthaven, could save her family from ruin. It was, as her father had repeatedly reminded her, her duty. She descended the staircase to find her father pacing the entrance hall of their rented London townhouse, his face flushed with anxiety. "There you are. The carriage awaits. Lady Pembroke's ball represents your final opportunity to secure Mounthaven's interest before he returns to his estate. He's nearly made his offer, Beatrice. Don't disappoint me tonight." Beatrice nodded, accustomed to her father's fretful disposition. "I understand my responsibilities perfectly, father." Lord Kent helped her into the carriage, and as it pulled away, Beatrice rehearsed her strategy. The Duke of Mounthaven, Maxwell Montague, was notorious for his practical approach to matrimony. Widowed 2 years prior, he had made it known he sought a sensible union with a woman of good breeding who would not trouble him with romantic sentimentality. His first Duchess had reportedly been precisely that, a convenient partner who had borne an heir and managed his households without emotional demands. Which made Beatrice the perfect candidate. Unlike the simpering débutantes who dreamed of love matches, she harbored no illusions about marriage. It was a contract, nothing more. She would secure her family's future while gaining the independence that came with being a duchess. The Duke would gain a capable manager of his domestic affairs who would never burden him with unwanted affection. A perfectly reasonable exchange. The Pembroke ballroom blazed with hundreds of candles, illuminating London's elite in their finest regalia. Beatrice navigated the crowd with practiced ease, acknowledging acquaintances with the precise degree of warmth their relationship warranted, no more, no less. Lady Beatrice, a smooth, deep voice addressed her from behind. "I believe this dance belongs to me." She turned to find the Duke of Mounthaven standing before her, tall and imposing in his formal attire. At 36, Maxwell Montague was not what society would call handsome, with his severe features and penetrating grey eyes, but his bearing commanded attention. Power emanated from him like heat from a fire. "Your Grace." She curtsied precisely. "I don't recall promising you a dance. Yet I've noted your habit of taking refreshment between the third and fourth dances. Since you declined to dance with anyone else during that set, I've taken the liberty of claiming it." "How observant of you," she replied, surprised and mildly disconcerted that he had studied her habits. "Observation is a useful skill in business and politics. I observe that you're the only woman in London who doesn't simper in my presence or attempt to extol her domestic virtues. It's refreshingly direct. I see little value in pretense, Your Grace." His mouth curved slightly. "Indeed. Shall we discuss terms, then? I require a duchess to manage my households and appear at necessary social functions. You require financial security and the independence of marriage. It seems a mutually beneficial arrangement." Beatrice blinked, taken aback by his bluntness despite sharing his pragmatic view. You propose matrimony with the same detachment one might propose a business merger. Is that not what we both consider it to be? I've watched you these past weeks, Lady Beatrice. You approach the marriage market with admirable calculation. No romantic notions clouding your judgment. And that appeals to you immensely. My first marriage taught me the value of clear expectations. The Duchess understood her role perfectly, and we maintained a cordial, efficient partnership until her passing. How fortunate, Beatrice replied, ignoring an unexpected twinge of dissatisfaction with his clinical assessment. Indeed. I'll call upon your father tomorrow to discuss settlements. For appearance's sake, we should dance once this evening. The final waltz, perhaps? A public declaration of intent. With that, he bowed and moved away, leaving Beatrice with the odd sensation of having concluded a business negotiation rather than secured a marriage proposal. She had achieved precisely what she wanted, so why did she feel this peculiar emptiness? The evening progressed predictably. Beatrice conversed with the right people, observed the social hierarchies, and maintained her reputation for composure. Yet she found her eyes repeatedly drawn to the Duke as he moved through the room, noting how he listened more than he spoke, how his rare smile transformed his austere features, how young ladies fluttered around him while he remained politely detached. As the orchestra began the introduction to the final waltz, Mounthaven appeared at her side. Lady Beatrice, he said, extending his hand. Shall we? She placed her gloved hand in his and allowed him to lead her onto the floor. They took their positions among the other couples, maintaining the proper distance as the music began. And then, something unexpected happened. The moment they began to move together, Beatrice felt a jolt, as though lightning had struck the precise spot where his hand rested at her waist. The Duke's step faltered, nearly imperceptible to anyone watching, but she felt his momentary hesitation. Their eyes met, and for an instant, his impassive mask slipped. You dance well, he said, his voice unusually tight. As do you, Your Grace, she managed, struggling to maintain her composure as they turned through the figures of the waltz. Each step, each turn intensified the strange awareness between them. The proper distance they maintained seemed charged with an invisible current. Beatrice found herself acutely conscious of his hand at her waist, the controlled strength in his movements, the faint scent of sandalwood that clung to his evening clothes. This made no sense. She had danced with dozens of gentlemen without experiencing this disorienting response. The Duke himself had touched her hand in greeting multiple times without effect. Why should a simple waltz suddenly render her breathless? You seem troubled, Lady Beatrice, the Duke observed, his tone revealing nothing of his own thoughts. Not at all, she lied. Merely considering the practicalities of our arrangement. Such as? Your expectations regarding domestic matters. The moment the words left her mouth, she regretted their ambiguity. Heat rose to her cheeks. His eyes darkened. I assure you, our arrangement will include all traditional aspects of marriage. The implication hung in the air between them as they turned through the final measures of the waltz. When the music ended, Beatrice felt oddly unsteady, as though the floor had shifted beneath her feet. The Duke bowed formally. I shall call upon your father tomorrow morning. Good evening, Lady Beatrice. He walked away, leaving her standing alone with her carefully constructed worldview suddenly, inexplicably, in disarray. The next morning, Beatrice sat in her father's study as the Duke's solicitor reviewed the marriage settlement terms. Her father could barely contain his glee at the generous provisions, all Kent debts to be paid, a substantial annual allowance for Beatrice, and a separate maintenance for Lord Kent himself. Most generous indeed. Lord Kent exclaimed, signing the documents with flourish. The Duke, seated opposite, watched Beatrice with unreadable eyes. "Lady Beatrice, do you find the terms satisfactory?" "They appear comprehensive, Your Grace," she replied evenly, fighting the inexplicable nervousness his presence now induced. "Though I would request one addition." Both men looked surprised. "And what might that be?" the Duke inquired. "I wish to maintain authority over charitable works at your country estates. The previous Duchess established several programs for tenant welfare that should not be neglected." Something flickered across the Duke's face, surprise, perhaps even approval. "An excellent suggestion. We shall add the provision." He turned to his solicitor. "Make the necessary amendments." After the papers were signed and the solicitor departed, the Duke requested a private word with his betrothed. Lord Kent, practically floating with relief at their family's financial salvation, readily agreed and left them alone in the study. Mounthaven stood by the window, his tall figure silhouetted against the morning light. "May I speak frankly, Lady Beatrice?" "I would expect nothing less." He turned to face her. "Last night, during our dance, I experienced a most unexpected reaction to your company." Beatrice's heart stuttered. "Indeed?" "Yes. Most disconcerting." He paused, studying her with those penetrating eyes. "I wonder if you felt something similar." "I?" For once in her life, Beatrice found herself without a carefully prepared response. It was merely the excitement of securing an advantageous match. "Was it?" He stepped closer. "I have negotiated countless contracts, Lady Beatrice, and none has ever caused my pulse to race as it did last night." "Perhaps you should consult a physician," she suggested, desperately attempting to restore their businesslike rapport. "I think not." Another step closer. "I believe what transpired between us was something neither of us anticipated in our rational assessment of this union. Attraction is a biological response that needn't complicate our arrangement," Beatrice said, proud of how steady her voice remained despite her racing heart. His mouth curved into that rare smile. "How pragmatic you are. It's one of your most appealing qualities." "I thought my appeal lay in my lack of romantic expectations." "Indeed. Yet I find myself wondering what other unexpected qualities might emerge once we are married." He reached for her hand, holding it lightly. "Our wedding is set for 3 weeks hence. Until then, I would like to better understand the woman who will be my Duchess." Beatrice withdrew her hand, unsettled by how his touch disrupted her composure. "I thought we had an understanding, Your Grace. A marriage of convenience, without emotional entanglements. And so we shall have. But even business partners must develop a rapport to function effectively." He bowed. "I shall call tomorrow to take you driving in the park." "Good day, Lady Beatrice." After he departed, Beatrice sat alone in the study, troubled by the unfamiliar confusion clouding her thoughts. This was precisely the match she had calculated would best serve her interests. Why then did she feel so uncertain? Over the following fortnight, the Duke's courtship proceeded with the same efficiency that characterized all his endeavors. Daily drives in the park, attendance at select social functions, even a carefully chaperoned visit to his London residence to acquaint her with the household she would soon manage. Yet beneath the proper surface, something shifted between them, a growing awareness that defied their mutual commitment to practicality. During a tour of the Duke's extensive library, Beatrice discovered a collection of botanical illustrations that matched her own scholarly interest in medicinal plants. "You've studied botany?" Mounthaven asked, watching as she examined a rare volume with obvious expertise. "Informally. My governess considered it an appropriate scientific pursuit for a lady, unlike astronomy or geology." Beatrice traced the illustration of foxglove with a gentle finger. "Though I've often thought the distinction arbitrary." "And what other inappropriate subjects interest you, Lady Beatrice?" She glanced up, surprised by the genuine curiosity in his voice. "Political economy. The management of agricultural estates. The new steam technologies. Fascinating." His eyes held hers. "My first wife had no interest in such matters." "Was she interested in you, Your Grace?" The question escaped before Beatrice could censor it. A shadow crossed his face. "Charlotte understood our arrangement. She managed my household admirably and gave me an heir. Her personal interests lay elsewhere." "With whom?" Again, Beatrice spoke without thinking. "With no one improper," he clarified quickly. "Her passion was music. She played beautifully but had little patience for conversation on other topics." He paused. "We maintained separate chambers from the start." "Oh." Beatrice absorbed this information, imagining the polite distance that had characterized his first marriage. "And that shall be entirely your decision," he interrupted, his voice low. "I would never impose unwelcome attentions on my wife." The air between them seemed to thicken. Beatrice looked away first. "What of your interests beyond business and politics, Your Grace?" "Maxwell," he corrected. "If we are to be married in a week's time, perhaps you should use my name when we are private." "Maxwell," she repeated, the name unfamiliar on her tongue. "I enjoy architecture," he said after a moment. "The rational application of mathematical principles to create something both beautiful and functional. Like a marriage of convenience." The word slipped out, carrying a hint of irony she hadn't intended. His eyes sharpened. "Precisely. Though I'm beginning to think our union may contain more unexpected elements than either of us anticipated." 2 days before the wedding, disaster struck. Beatrice received an urgent message requesting her presence at her father's club. She arrived to find Lord Kent huddled in a private room with a red-faced gentleman she recognized as Sir William Halsey, a notorious gambler. "Father, what's happened?" Lord Kent couldn't meet her eyes. "A small misunderstanding, my dear. Nothing to concern yourself with." Sir William laughed harshly. "Your father wagered £5,000 he didn't possess on a horse that finished last. That's rather more than a misunderstanding, I'd say." Beatrice's blood ran cold. "Father, how could you?" "The Duke's settlement hasn't yet been transferred. I was certain of victory. The funds would have doubled, tripled even." Lord Kent's hands trembled. "Sir William has generously offered an alternative arrangement." "Indeed I have." Sir William's gaze raked over Beatrice with undisguised appreciation. "I'll forgive the debt entirely if your daughter agrees to marry me instead of Mounthaven." "That's absurd," Beatrice gasped. "I am contracted to marry the Duke in 2 days' time." "Contracts can be broken," Sir William said with an unpleasant smile. "Especially when a father faces debtor's prison. Think carefully, Lady Beatrice. Your Duke seeks only a convenient hostess. I, on the other hand, would appreciate all your qualities." "Leave us," she commanded, her voice like ice. When Sir William had gone, she rounded on her father. "How dare you gamble with my future? With our family's honor?" "I never meant," Lord Kent began, then collapsed into tears. "I'm ruined, Beatrice. Sir William will see me imprisoned. The scandal will destroy us both." Beatrice closed her eyes, mind racing. The Duke's settlement would have paid all their debts, but the funds wouldn't be released until after the wedding. If her father were arrested for debt before then, the scandal would certainly give Mounthaven grounds to cry off. I will speak to the Duke, she said at last. Perhaps he can advance the funds. You cannot tell him. Lord Kent looked horrified. He'll withdraw his offer. Then what would you have me do? Marry Sir William instead. Her father's silence was answer enough. Beatrice left the club, heart pounding with anger and fear. The practical partnership she had so carefully negotiated with Mounthaven now seemed infinitely precious compared to the alternative. Yet how could she approach the Duke without revealing her father's disgrace? More troubling still was the realization that the prospect of not marrying Maxwell affected her far more deeply than concerns for her father's gambling debts or her own security. Somehow, when she hadn't been paying attention, the man himself had become important to her. That evening, the Duke called at the Kent townhouse for a final review of wedding arrangements. Beatrice received him in the drawing-room, struggling to conceal her distress. You seem troubled, he observed immediately. Has something occurred? Not at all, she lied. Merely pre-wedding nerves, I suppose. He studied her with those perceptive grey eyes. I believed we had established honesty between us, Beatrice. The use of her given name, rare even now, weakened her resolve. It's nothing that need concern you. Anything that distresses my future wife concerns me greatly. He stepped closer. Tell me what troubles you. I cannot. She turned away, afraid he would read the truth in her face. Cannot or will not? His voice hardened. If you've reconsidered our arrangement, no. The vehemence of her denial surprised them both. That is, I remain committed to our agreement. Yet something has changed. He moved to stand before her. Is it another suitor? Your father's interference. Beatrice almost laughed at how close he'd come to the truth. Please, Maxwell. Some matters must remain private, even between. She faltered, uncertain how to define what they were to each other. Even between husband and wife, he finished, his expression shuddering. I see. You wish to maintain barriers between us. That was our agreement, was it not? A marriage of convenience, not of confidences. Something flickered in his eyes, hurt, perhaps, or disappointment. Indeed. How foolish of me to expect otherwise. He bowed stiffly. I shall take my leave. Good evening, Lady Beatrice. After he departed, Beatrice sank onto the sofa, despair washing over her. Not only had she failed to secure help with her father's debt, but she had damaged the unexpected trust growing between herself and Maxwell. Yet what choice did she have? If he learned of Lord Kent's gambling, he would surely withdraw his offer, and then where would she be? The next morning, Beatrice was awakened by her maid's urgent voice. My lady! Lord Kent has disappeared, and there's a gentleman downstairs demanding to see you. He says it's most urgent. Fearing the worst, Beatrice dressed hastily and descended to find not Sir William, but the Duke himself pacing the morning room, his expression thunderous. Maxwell! What brings you here at this hour? He turned, eyes blazing with anger. Were you aware that your father owes £5,000 to Sir William Halsey? Beatrice felt the blood drain from her face. How did you? Halsey approached me this morning with a most interesting proposition. He suggested I pay him the sum in question to prevent your father's imprisonment for debt. Oh God, Beatrice whispered, sinking into a chair. Then you know. I know that your father gambled away money he didn't possess. I know that Halsey offered to forgive the debt if you would marry him instead of me. The Duke's jaw tightened. What I don't know is why you kept this from me. I feared you would cry off if you knew of the scandal, she admitted. The settlement wouldn't be paid, my father would be ruined, and you would be forced to marry Halsey. Mounthaven's expression darkened further. "Did you consider accepting his offer?" "No. Never," Beatrice exclaimed. "But I didn't know how to approach you without revealing my father's disgrace. So you chose to face this alone rather than trust me with the truth." The hurt beneath his anger was unmistakable now. "I thought we had moved beyond such calculation in our dealings with one another." "Have we?" She looked up at him, suddenly desperate to understand what lay between them. "What exactly is our relationship, Maxwell? A business arrangement? A convenient partnership? Or something else that neither of us anticipated?" He stared at her for a long moment. "I believed it was becoming something meaningful," he said at last. "Evidently, I was mistaken." The pain in his voice pierced her carefully constructed defenses. "No," she whispered. "You weren't mistaken." "Then why?" "Because I was afraid." The words burst from her. "Not just of losing the settlement, but of losing you. When we first agreed to this marriage, it was a simple exchange of advantages. But now—" "Now," he prompted when she fell silent. "Now I find myself contemplating a future not just as your Duchess, but as your wife in every sense." The thought of that future being snatched away was unbearable. Maxwell's expression softened. He crossed the room and knelt before her chair, taking her hands in his. "Beatrice, did it not occur to you that I might feel the same?" She stared at him, hope and uncertainty warring within her. "How could it?" "You sought a marriage of convenience, not affection. As did you. Yet here we are." His thumbs traced circles on her palms. "When we waltzed that night at Lady Pembroke's ball, something changed. I've spent these weeks trying to understand what happened between us." "And have you reached a conclusion?" "Only that the convenience I sought has become secondary to the woman herself." He smiled ruefully. "Most inconvenient, really." A laugh escaped her. "Terribly inconvenient." "I've paid Halsey," Maxwell said, his expression growing serious again. "Your father's debt is settled." "Thank you," she whispered. "I shall repay you from my allowance. You shall do no such thing." He squeezed her hands. "Consider it my wedding gift, along with this promise. I will never allow anyone to threaten or pressure you again, not even your father." "And what of our arrangement?" Beatrice asked, hardly daring to hope. "Is it still merely a marriage of convenience?" Maxwell raised her hand to his lips. "I propose an amendment to our terms, Lady Beatrice. While our marriage may begin as a rational partnership, I believe we should allow for the possibility that it might grow into something more inconveniently wonderful. Like architecture," she said softly. "Mathematical principles creating something both functional and beautiful." "Exactly so." His smile transformed his severe features. "Do you accept these amended terms?" In answer, Beatrice leaned forward and placed a gentle kiss on his lips, there first. "I believe this constitutes my signature to the agreement." The wedding proceeded the following day without further incident. Lord Kent, thoroughly chastened by his narrow escape from ruin, behaved with uncharacteristic humility. Society pronounced it a brilliant match. The wealthy Duke and the composed, intelligent Lady Beatrice would certainly establish a dynasty of impeccable breeding and fortune. Only the bride and groom knew the truth, that beneath their proper exterior lay a passion kindled by a single waltz and nurtured through unexpected honesty. Their vows, spoken with quiet intensity, contained a secret promise that transcended convenience. 6 months later, the Duke and Duchess of Mounthaven hosted their first country house party at the Duke's ancestral estate. After dinner, Beatrice excused herself from the ladies in the drawing room and slipped away to the library, where she knew her husband often retreated during social gatherings. She found him by the fire, reading a letter with a frown of concentration. "Hiding from our guests, Your Grace," she teased, coming to stand beside his chair. Maxwell looked up, his expression softening immediately. "Merely reviewing some business correspondence." He set the letter aside and drew her down onto his lap, a liberty he would never have taken in company but which had become natural in their private moments. "And what of you? Tired of Mrs. Langley's gossip about Lady Jersey's latest scandal?" Exhausted by it, Beatrice admitted, resting her head against his shoulder. "Though I maintained a properly interested expression throughout." "My perfect Duchess," he murmured, pressing a kiss to her temple. "Always maintaining appearances." "Only in public," she reminded him. "In private, I believe I've proven quite imperfect indeed." His low laugh rumbled against her. "Gloriously imperfect. And utterly inconvenient to my former existence." "Do you regret it?" she asked, knowing the answer but enjoying the game they often played. "Every day," he said solemnly, then smiled. "Every day I regret not having found you sooner. Every day I regret the years I spent believing marriage could be nothing more than a practical arrangement." Beatrice traced the line of his jaw with gentle fingers. "We still maintain a practical arrangement. It merely includes additional benefits." "Such as?" His eyes darkened with familiar heat. "Intellectual stimulation. Mutual respect. Compatibility in all manner of activities." She pressed a soft kiss to his lips. "And something else neither of us expected to find." "What would that be, my inconvenient Duchess?" Beatrice smiled against his mouth. "Love, my inconvenient Duke. Utterly impractical, thoroughly irrational, completely wonderful love." "How fortunate," Maxwell murmured, drawing her closer, "that we are both sensible enough to recognize the value of such an arrangement." "Indeed," she agreed as his lips found hers again. "The most convenient inconvenience imaginable." Outside in the drawing room, their guests might have wondered at the extended absence of both host and hostess. But those who observed the Duke and Duchess of Mounthaven closely had long since noted that their supposedly practical marriage had evolved into something far more profound than mere convenience, something that had begun, according to Lady Pembroke's account, with a single waltz that had changed everything.